Welcome back, everyone. President Bola Tinubu has unveiled the planning committee of the National Youth Confab at the Council Chamber of the State House in Abuja. The committee is to be chaired by Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Youth Development, Olubunmi Olusoya. This inauguration comes 5 months after President Tinubu, in his latest Independence Day broadcast, announced plans for a 30-day National Youth Confab to address critical issues facing the country's youth. At the ceremony, the president asked the youth to seize the opportunity to redefine the fortunes of millions of their counterparts across the nation. President Bola Tinubu, speaking at the council chamber, also says a lot. So tonight, we will get more insights into the National Youth Conference Planning Committee. Joining me in the studio is engineer Ayodeji, Bakere, Director, Renewed Hope Diaspora Policy Forum. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
So what is the Renewed Hope Diaspora Policy Forum all about?
Sorry?
The Renewed Hope Diaspora Policy Forum. What is it all about?
Oh, that basically was, I think that was during the campaign season where the plans for Nigerians by President Bola Tinubu was critically dissected from section to section, looking at all of the key performance indicators, the KPIs, studying the key operating parameters, and also where we need to do a lot of work on, where opportunities are abound, and maybe some of the challenges that may come up and the solutions to all of that. So we went through, I think it was a 13-week program, and we broke all of the policies and all of the plans and the manifestos bit by bit.
All right, so let's get to the crux of tonight's conversation because we have about 20 minutes for this. The president has now inaugurated a 44-man planning committee for this youth conference. Why is a National Youth Conference important at this time?
Yes, a National Youth Conference is very important at this time because there's a popular Yoruba saying that says the wisdom of the old and the young is used to develop Ile-Ife. The youth already are 60% population of Nigeria, and we need the inputs of the youth. The Nigerian youth is very innovative. The Nigerian youth is very creative. The Nigerian youth is very knowledgeable, and this is an opportunity for Nigerians, the Nigerian youth, both in the diaspora and here in Nigeria, to bring up ideas that will turn our fortunes around. Already the president has all of these policies, beautiful policies, all of these regulations taking place. However, we also need the youth to also come in. And where do they come in? They look at it from a macroeconomic, a microeconomic, and also from a human development capacity perspective. Hopefully, we may be able to delve into that, in subsequent conversations.
So do you think we need a conference for government to address these challenges?
Because
the supporters of the conference argued that it would provide them a much-needed platform for young Nigerians to voice their concerns and influence national policies. But do we need a conference for government to address all these challenges?
Oh, absolutely. We need this conference to address a lot of challenges. For example, communication. Now, you look at all of the government policies going on, you look at all of the changes taking place, how is it effectively communicated to the Nigerian youth? Does the Nigerian youth really and truly understand the two key policies, for example, the removal of fuel subsidy and also the liberalization of the Naira?
Do you think it would take a conference for Nigerian youth to understand that?
No, not necessarily. That is not the point. That is not where I'm driving at, actually. Okay. I am just saying that on the side, the importance of communication. And then you begin to look at a platform where the Nigerian youth can speak. The Nigerian youth feels that they cannot really express themselves in some certain ways and in some certain fashions. The Nigerian youth is ideological in nature. Now, the president, Bola Tinubu, is saying, hey, youth, come and let us run this country together. And that is why we need it, because he has called us. He has cried out to us, and we are up to the task, and even more than up to the task, because we see everything going on in Nigeria and outside of Nigeria to complement all of the efforts that the president is putting in place and his team also.
Does this also mean that young Nigerians, young APC members or young Nigerians in the president's cabinet are not doing enough to propagate these policies to their counterparts? No,
far from that. Far from that, absolutely. No man is an island. You always want to get as much help as possible. Now, there is what is called looking at things from a brand new set of eyes, a brand new set of lenses. I'll give you one of the things that hopefully may come up during this confab. Imagine a world in Nigeria where each local government has a farm. Now, think about that. Think about a situation where this food crop and cash crop situation going on in Nigeria, especially the food crop where we're talking about food prices are a little bit on the high side. Imagine a world where you have that in your local government, managed by the people in the local government. Now, that is one idea. And those are 1,000,001 ideas that are going to be brought to the fore when we have this conference.
So, in proper perspective, what does the president aim to achieve with this conference? And I'm asking because, truly Nigeria has a theme for holding conferences, but never implementing recommendations or resolutions from these conferences, from implementing some of these conferences. This planned one concerns Nigerians, and I'm sure this is the first of its kind. So what does the president aim to achieve with this conference?
Now, the president's aim of what he's wanting to achieve is simple. I want to improve the lives of the highest demographic in the country, and I want them to participate in that particular conversation. I want them to participate. I cannot be there making decisions for the whole populace in quotes. And then there is a certain demographic, about 60%, 18 years to 40 years, and they're like, oh, we also want to give our own input. So what he's trying to aim here is, I want to improve the lives of Nigerians, the human capacity of Nigerians. That is from the healthcare standpoint, that is from the education standpoint, and that is from the standard of living standpoint, and everything else that encompasses that. That is what he's aiming to achieve with us, the Nigerian youth, both in Nigeria and in diaspora, playing a very key role. There will be recommendations, and we trust that the Minister Olawande, Seyi Tinubu, we believe that they are going to push this till the end, because those are our voices. We are channeling all of our voices and all of our ideas and all of our thought processes through them. Because after all, the minister is the one anchoring this particular program. I know the Ministry of Youth is also anchoring this particular program. So they must see it to fruition. I trust they will.
But also, let's talk about this committee, because I'm sure an average Nigerian would ask, how am I sure these young men and women would articulate the yearnings of young Nigerians? And also, I'm wondering, how diverse is this committee? I mean, devoid of just young APC supporters. I see some names on that committee, but believe me, young Nigerians out there asking, are these really young people?
Well, firstly, I want to address something here. I think that this is not a partisan type committee or program and or event. We need to take that out. This has nothing to do with your political affiliation. This is the Nigerian people speaking in one voice. Now, I cannot sit here and tell you the criteria for which or how it's going to be selected. I know for a fact that there are some ministries, departments, and agencies that are going to be a part of it. I know honorable commissioners, like, for example, the Commissioner of Lagos State, Ogunlende, Commissioner Ogunlende. I know these people are going to be a part of it. I know that some certain stakeholders are going to be a part of it, because of that is the communique that has been sent across board. Some non-governmental organizations are going to be a part of it. But I cannot sit here and tell you that I know exactly who's going to be a part of it. And I do not know the age criteria, because remember, it's between 18 to 40. So it might be a disservice if people are saying, oh, these people are older. What if they're younger?
How important is it that these people are truly young Nigerians?
No, it is very, very important. When you say young Nigerians, we're talking about the youths here, and it has to be between 18 to 40. Okay. So we are looking at that range of being between 18 to 40 already. I do not have the birth certificates of these people.
All right, so we're supposed to listen to the president's speech at the inauguration, but it says, and I quote, "Every decision that I've taken is about you. It's about the future. When we removed the fuel subsidy, it was because we wanted to protect your future. We have cleared the path for you to have a great future. This is your opportunity to develop the nation and make it prosperous. You're the heartbeat of our nation, and I hope you take this responsibility seriously." How instructive are these words?
Oh, they're very instructive. Very, very instructive. And when the president said that, he put us, wear your thinking cap. Again, add value. I want the Nigerian youth to add value. I want the Nigerian youth to come up with brilliant technologies to take Nigeria to the next level. That is how we are going to improve our GDP. I'm a manufacturing engineer by practice, and I believe in core manufacturing. And if we're going to have core manufacturing, we want Nigerian youths to have that particular technology that they are innovating and that they are creating. Imagine a world where Nigerian universities, tertiary institutions, and the likes are producing their own electricity. Imagine a world as that, and then begin to think of what kind of technology can we put in place that will be owned by these universities, where the electrical engineers, the mechanical engineers, the chemical engineers, and the likes can come together such that they can produce that kind of electricity, and then we can begin to sell it. It is not that it's not being done elsewhere. Okay. You see that these things are being done. You can look at Iceland, for example, and look at their model using geothermal energy for producing electricity. We can have that here. Nigeria is very hot. We are sitting in the tropics. We're sitting in the tropics, and we can dig in that soil and get that steam to heat up that particular material to transfer heat and make that heat do work. So that is it here, adding value, coming up with new technology, looking at agriculture, for example. Let me throw in another idea again. We talk about food storages, food sovereignty, food security, and the likes. Imagine a world where that 40% losses that we get right from the farm when, because they have lack of storage facilities. Imagine a world where we have the AC system, just an AC unit. And then you have this solar technology, this solar that's going on everywhere. You put that on the roof, cool that particular area, and you build on that technology. So I'm just giving you an idea.
That's interesting, but also this is the first time we'd see a young person, take charge of the Ministry of Youth Development, Ayodeji. Before now, we used to have men in their 50s, close to their 60s, in charge of a ministry dedicated to young people. And that's a plus for this government. But what difference has that made since this administration came on board? Well,
when I look at the Minister for Youth and I see a youth like me, that is very encouraging. That tells me that there's an opportunity for me, not just me, but every youth in Nigeria watching us today. And as such, you can see the drive, his verve, and his passion. And you can see coming up, with the president, I know himself, anchoring this youth confab. You can see all of the different activities that have taken place. You can look at all of these MSME programs, all of these grants, and bringing out your ideas, and we're going to give you loans. We're going to give you loans and the likes. You can see it. But when I turn on that TV, or when I watch that video on YouTube, and I see a youth, I see a young person that's the Minister for Youth, that's enough drive for me to want to push to the next level. When I mean next level, I mean the Nigerian youth, not just me. That shows that there's an opportunity where someone of my own age can effect change in Nigeria. And that is how I see the minister, and that is how the minister portrays and reflects to we, the Nigerian youth.
I get that, but some Nigerians are still, nursing the fear about whether or not this conference would lead to real policy changes. Why should they trust Mr. President? And as a diasporan, how optimistic are your own expectations?
Well, now I'll address this as a diasporan. I see Nigeria differently. I'm a patriotic diasporan, and I'm a patriotic resident of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Okay. And I believe strongly in Nigeria. I see opportunities everywhere, not challenges. I see opportunities everywhere. And I also know that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a go-getter. I think this studio we're in today is a living testimony to that. This is my first time in Eco Atlantic, and I see what he did to the Atlantic. And that tells me that, yes, if he can do this to the Atlantic, then whatever recommendations are going to come from this conference, he is going to implement them. He's not a man scared of implementing policies. Who would think that this fuel subsidy would be implemented, like taking off? I believe in targeted subsidy, by the way. Who would think that he would be able to liberalize the naira, where we would not be spending $1 billion US dollars to defend the Naira monthly, or fuel subsidy of 1.5 billion US dollars annually, monthly, and then you're talking about electricity subsidy of 300 million dollars monthly. That's about $33 billion annually. He took that risk, and that gives me assurance that when we bring these recommendations to him, he's going to implement them. You know, so we're going to.
But also, I know we have an implementation challenge in this part of the world, but then how do you think governments must ensure that the resolutions reached at this conference get to the most vulnerable youth population in the country? That's my concern.
Well, it's two things. There's one thing that we need to pay attention to, and that is revenue.
Generation?
You cannot do, yes, generation. You cannot do anything without revenue. And that is why we need to pay keen attention to the tax conversation going on, the tax reforms going on. The Nigerian youth is paying attention to all of this. And as such, the Nigerian youth understands that when the government gets more revenue, it is going to trickle down from federal to state, from state to local government. Because remember, Nigeria is a federation. A federation is made up of a country and states, and then it goes to the locals. So it is that particular network that is going to, we're going to channel all of these policies and recommendations and the likes, and also effective communication down to the grassroots, carrying everybody across and along. That is very key, and that is very important. Part of the conference is the Nigerian youth or the leaders of this program going into their respective constituencies and having conversations with the Nigerian youth.
I was going to ask, is the youth wing of the APC doing enough to propagate the renewed hope agenda of the president? Oh,
I would say so. I would say yes, they are doing that. I'm a living testimony to that. And that's part of what I do. And I see other team members that do that at different scales, at different levels, and at different classes. But remember, this is not about partisanship. This is a bipartisan event where no matter your political affiliation, we are all coming together as Nigerians. Elections are over.
Okay. So still talking about getting the messages across to the vulnerable groups in our society. I mean, we've seen the president's son, Tinubu, moving around some northern states, even here in Lagos. Before our very eyes is building what some have called pan-Nigeria bridges. How much of an exemplary leadership is this? What message is it trying to pass across the Nigerians and the youth in particular?
Well, it just shows a youth leader that cares about Nigerians, basically, regardless of your class, regardless of your age group and range. Tinubu is doing whatever he's doing in the north. There are 1,000,001 Nigerian youths also that are doing all of that, both in the north, in the south, and the east and the west. It is a collaborative effort. And as such, it shows that networks are being built. So when all of these recommendations come into play and opportunities come into play, this will be able to channel, you'll be able to channel all of that down to the downtrodden. Now, this is effective networking. This is effective grassroots mobilization. When I mean mobilization, I mean reaching out to the vulnerable. Because, like you rightfully put it, it is going to the vulnerable. The vulnerable. The vulnerable. I repeat again, the vulnerable. Those are the people that feel the effects. They are not on social media. I see them firsthand. They are not on social media. That's why I said the Nigerian youth is very hardworking. Give the Nigerian youth tools and resources and see what he's going to do about it. We need to clean the image of the Nigerian youth. There are a lot of, will I call it stigma as regards to Nigeria. The Nigerian youth is not that. The Nigerian youth is unique. I see hope. I see vision. I see prosperity in the Nigerian youth, and I am a Nigerian youth, and I see that for myself, I see that for my community, and I see that for the 60% of Nigerians at large.
But as someone who lives outside the shores of this country, I want to take you up on leveraging diaspora finance for sustainable development. Talk to us about the critical role of the diaspora in advancing Nigeria's national development aspirations.
Well, A diasporan is exposed to advanced countries. A diasporan is exposed to second world countries as defined by the World Bank. Nigeria is in between a third and a fourth world country. So what makes a third and a fourth world country become a second world country or a first world country? It is basically strong and reliable institutions. Okay. So what the Nigerian diaspora is trying to...
Nigerian youths are clamoring for.
Yes, it has to be strong and stable institutions. So when you look at all of your different institutions like banks, the diaspora is looking at how does the banking operate, how do they bank abroad or wherever the case may be, how is that going to work here? Healthcare, education, transportation, agriculture. That is just one aspect. The second aspect also is the diaspora remittance. That is a way that the diaspora is actually contributing to Nigeria. When you're doing over $20 billion annually, you're contributing also to Nigeria also, and the Nigerians living in Nigeria also.
Let's talk about the Renewed Hope agenda, because there are stakeholders now pushing forward the formalization of that agenda, the formalization of the Renewed Hope agenda into a national development plan that according to them, that will enable the incorporation of the SDGs and the setting of clear-cut targets for their realization. What do you think about that?
I would say it's a fantastic idea. However, this is non-partisan. Different administrations have come in, they've had their plans. Now imagine them incorporating that to a national plan, and then a next party comes into play. So now, what we can do is, which is a fantastic plan, don't get me wrong, because if you read the Renewed Hope manifesto, it is very, very robust. If you read it, it's very, very robust. So what we can do is look at which ones actually have, that's kind of like generalized, and then implement that into the national, agenda. That is how I would define that. All right.
We'll continue this conversation in a moment, but let's listen to the president's speech at that inauguration.
Okay, thank you.
All right, looks like we have some audio challenge there, but let's continue. You know, I intentionally asked you about diaspora sustainable development because the fact is youths are the foundation of a society. Their energies, inventiveness, character and orientation define the pace of development of any country. How does this administration go about rebuilding the trust young people once had in this country?
Trust, trust, trust. Again, stable and reliable institutions. When the government begins to work on, which they are working on, for example, the first subsidy situation, that's making it, now you're seeing competition. Now people are beginning to trust that particular policy. So I will only address this as strong institutions. When the Nigerian youth and when Nigerians at large begin to see that our institutions are strong, stable, and reliable, and then the trust begins to come. And I think that this administration is trying their possible best to build that trust. Another thing also is ownership. Okay. Now, I have an idea actually, but there's a way of building that ownership. The Nigerian youth in particular in this conversation, and the Nigerian government. Okay. Ownership, asset ownership. If you own something, you want to be accountable for that and you want to be responsible for that, and then we can begin to build trust. So those are the two ways I will address the trust situation.
So before I let you go, you know, in recent times there's been increased clamor for youth inclusion in governance. And just to breach this, the country's governance gap, would you say we've made progress?
I would say we've made progress. If you look at the current landscape, like you rightfully said, the Minister for Youth is a youth. It is showing that this government is very, very intentional in wanting to bring the youth on board. Now, I would advise, if you're a youth watching us today, go and join a political party. I do not care what kind of political party you want to join, go and join one. Now, secondly, if you know you cannot go through the rigors of joining a political party, go and join a pressure group. In your community, there may be some things that may not be right. Maybe electricity, maybe roads, maybe drainage, maybe healthcare, maybe education. Go and join that pressure group. Section 40 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended, gives you that. Freedom of association. Go and join.
But with the kind of conversation you see on social media regarding politics and national issues, would you say young Nigerians are beginning to show greater interest in governance?
Oh, yes. There is an awakening.
Okay.
However, I would suggest that the awakening is channeled the right way. It has to be channeled the right way through right decisions and right information.
All right. It's great having this conversation with you, Engineer Ayodeji Bakere, Director, Renewed Hope, Diaspora Policy Forum. Thank you so much for your perspectives.
Thank you very much. It's an honor. Thank you.
Now let's take a short break, and I'll be right back. Please stay with us.